Hey guys, it's me Rebecca. So this will be the start of another weekly vlog, and since today is Sunday, I did do some editing. Usually with videos I will stop filming around Saturday if I'm doing a vlog, but I always for some reason edit on Sundays. I have no idea. I've done that. I've also done some cleaning and I have done some reading. I'm still reading Edinburgh Twilight by Carol Lawrence, which I started in my last vlog. I'm never gonna be one of those booktubers who like always starts the vlog with a new book. Like that's just not my thing. If I do that, then I do that. I don't. But yep, we do, and I'm gonna like link my previous video where I start this book in the description below if you want to see that. And here are like my initial thoughts, because I think I was on page 150 when I ended that vlog, and I'm on page 250. So yep, I'm quite bit reading, but yeah, but we see how we kind of learn, I guess, more of the kind of victims our murderer is choosing. It seems like there's people who are seen less in society, who kind of have to go underground, not underground, but kind of be, who I feel like who are not valued by society, who have to be hidden, or society has grapes if they have grapes of society. Like with our second victim, he had grapes because he was an Irishman in Scotland. He wasn't treated fairly. Like he has fought himself as a disadvantage because of life, and it also seems like with the kind of people he was hanging out with. And I'm mentioning this because when Ian, he goes to interview the landlady of the first victim, named Stephen. She tells him he had certain acquaintances, and she also then follows that up with that he never entertained young ladies, like that he was attracted to his own sex, and she thinks the murderer could have been one of the acquaintances he had. And when Ian is going back to the station, the sergeant he's working with, Dickerson, finds him and tells him someone is claiming to be the murderer. And after talking to this guy for like 2 seconds, he calls this guy bullshit, and he's like, "You're not a murderer." Like, the guy is still claiming to be the murderer, even if he's not. He says he has a desire to kill him, and he's like, "Come back when those urges are higher." Like, he mentions to Dickerson there are, I guess, details about the cases like that are not put in the papers because there will be people in a pub who will make things difficult, who will use these details to kind of make their own story that they're the murderer stronger, their own, and that people will claim to be the murderer to get out of debt or to get away from a nagging wife, as he claimed. Like, there's many reasons why someone might claim to have killed someone when they didn't, to have to face prison, and it seems like this guy might have also hoped that the true perpetrator would have been caught before he was hanged, because this is during the time when it was still legal, I guess. So, yeah, I think that the whole thing was quite entertaining, and I do have to mention certain details because the lineage on the victim's neck, so not mentioned in the playing cards, like that's not mentioned in that paper. And yeah. And we also see how Hamilton, he invites the street urchin Derek to his flat. Like, he knows Derek, like, he's putting on an act pretending he's an uneducated urchin when really he might be educated, not educated, but he is smarter than he wants people to think. He speaks in a certain way, he puts up an act, and when Hamilton calls him out, and he gets lowers his walls, which I do find interesting. And we also see how he feels this empathy for this kid. Like, he can, no one deserves to be on the street. No one deserves to live on the street, to live on a hard surface, not have a meal, to have a hot meal. They deserve him. And he invites this kid in and has him like bathe, gives him a warm meal, and it's like sleep on his couch. I don't know. He knows what it's like to be dispossessed, and speaking of Vita's own papers, we see how George, our friendly librarian, is quite an eccentric character. Like I wouldn't. I kind of wish who Hamilton was like just more fed up. Like, really, why are you like this? Like, I don't know. George is just very eccentric, like a puppy dog eager to help. But he shows up at Ian's apartment at the crack of dawn. Like he's like, "Oh, I thought you were the kind of person who would wake up early. Sorry." With a newspaper clipping like from friends. Apparently, crimes that happened in Paris that are quite similar than what's happened in Edinburgh in technique, and we later know from a counterpart in France who comes over to Edinburgh to give details that the same playing cards were left on the bodies of the latter two victims. For some reason, he didn't leave a playing card on the first victim. And it's just quite interesting, so I'm very much intrigued if it actually is the same perpetrator or someone who drew inspiration from him. But yeah, and I have to say, like, the whole thing with Ian's family, and if things were really as happy and delightful as it seemed like when he was a kid before the fire, like if that's really how it was, like I don't know, the whole thing of questioning if things were really well, like I don't know, in a way it feels out of place. It's like, why now? It seems like it's been many years since the fire happened, and I don't know, in a way it feels out of place. And it made me think this because Ian's brother, he shows up and he's claiming that he's now sober. I guess he decides to stay with Ian for a bit while he tries to clean up his act, get back into medical school. And during an argument, Ian mentions that there were rumors that his father was corrupt, which I don't know. It just felt out of place, the whole thing. Yeah, like, and Stephen's landlady, she has Derek tell him that she found something in Stephen's possessions, and she wants to show Ian in person, and he's like, he'll visit her in the morning, and the murderer shows up, and it seems like that she's quite familiar with him, like she's quite friendly, she's quite charming, she like opens the door and then like greets him like she's familiar with him, and he goes into Stephen's room, is looking for something, cannot find it, and he happens to see it among her notebooks, and she mentioned she was gonna give it to the detective inspector on the case, and it turns out to be this playing card that he gave Stephen that he couldn't find. And he kills the landlady, probably just to silence her, so that when he does nick the card, she's not able to say who it is, and or did it, like he poisons her, and there's a whole scene when apparently when for some reason Hamilton brings up a fact that apparently a certain amount of the population can smell almonds and cyanide, like the poison that was in her food. He can, but the sergeant can reach. I don't know. I found that was pretty interesting. So yeah, if you smell almonds and there's no almonds around, I guess be wary. And yeah, last thing I will mention is that we later see how the murderer, he picks up his next victim, who happens to be this gay Irishman in an underground club. He seduces the man to leave to a more secluded place before killing him. Like the last thing I read was someone finding the body, but yeah, that's what I mean by like, I guess the hidden figures of society, like those who might be like, you might see in plain sight as normal looking people like Stephen, who's this average guy, like he worked as a clerk in a law firm, and we also had, I think, Bobby, who like was a tradesman or something with ships. Like, not sure about the third victim. We haven't been introduced to him yet, but it seems like those he's either familiar with, or those he's not. Like, I don't know. They also seem like, in the eyes of the society of the time in Edinburgh, like those who they won't be as missed or something. I'm not sure, like, if that's intentional or not, but I just found that like an interesting connection. And yeah, I think that's all so far. Like, literally my only gripe with this novel. I'm having a fun time with it. Like, it's this. Usually with detective novels, I never try to guess like who it could be, and just don't know who it could be. Like, really don't. Really, I'm not really getting any clues on the identity of him. Like, it could be like some random figure, but who knows? But I never try to guess who. Yeah, my biggest real gripe is the whole thing with Hamilton's family. Like, in a way, it feels out of place. Like, yes, I know it's the first book in a series, and so we do need to establish this character, but the whole questioning, like, this is this, there, he was, I mean, I don't know, just, if that's not going to be explored in this book, then I guess it's like set up to explore in a later book. So yeah, but yeah, that's all of my opinions so far, and I'll see you when I see you, and yeah, and then we're supposed to get some snow tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah. So it's the next day, and we did get some snow. I think we got an inch or so, but still had to shovel that. And yeah, I don't know, I always do find it so beautiful. Like, there's something charming about it in a way, especially when it's dark. It's because it's like so quiet and peaceful, I don't know. But yeah, and I've done some cleaning otherwise in the house, and I've done some reading of Edinburgh Twilight, and I'm on page 354, and I don't know, I'm still enjoying it. It's a detective novel. Yeah. And it seems like Ian, he's starting to question those around him, like if certain people who've come into his life during this investigation could be the murderer. And he goes through his brother's things just to see if he's still there. Like, his brother left the apartment when they had that argument, and he went into his room and saw his stuff back, and he saw his brother had a deck of the playing cards that looked quite similar to the playing cards found on the bodies, and Ian checks, he makes sure that all the cards are there, and they are. Like, it's so he can whoa out his brother some other ones. The brother has like another deck that he's, I don't know. Yeah, and he also is questioning if he can trust George, because George knows about the playing cards, even though Ian didn't tell him, and that information isn't being told to the newspaper, so it's like, how did he know about this? And George says that young Derek told him, and Derek later confirms that this is true, that he did tell George. He didn't know he wasn't supposed to, and yeah, after George leaves, after building a cat door for the cat that Ian unwillingly adopted, Ian, he can't help thinking if he's gotten it wrong about humanity. Like, he had this very like black and white way of thinking of things, like that within humanity, in society, really there are good people and there are bad people. Like, it's separate. But he's starting to think if it's really more like people are more gray. Like, there are good elements of people, but bad things about people. Like, someone who might outwardly look like a good person might be a bad person. Like, I don't know, that kind of thinking and discussion is quite interesting because people still exist like that. People still think like humanity is all black. Like there's good people, there's bad people, but separate things. But really, like you might know someone and think they're a good person, but they might be a horrible person. Like it could also be that they want to put up a front, but and trick people into thinking they're really a good person. But it could also be some like they are a good person, but something happens in their life that just causes the bad parts of themselves to overtake the goodness. And yeah, we learn that the niece of the lawyer whose law office Stephen was working at is an opium addict, and it turns out Stephen was her supplier, and he was getting the opium from a borrower, our third victim. I've lost track somehow, I don't know when, where he was last seen, and Ian does get some information. Some guys at this bar did see the guy with the murderer, and someone is offering to come in to sketch him. Or to like, give details to the police so they can sketch him. If it makes sense, I don't know. Yeah, we also see how the murderer, he's at Waverly train station, and you see how he pushes someone off a platform onto a train, killing them. And we're not told who it is, but later on when the police see the article in the newspaper, the constable and inspector, Ian's boss, he's like, my god, we saw him like a few hours ago, so I'm assuming it's the French detective that they were consulting on the case with. And we see the murderer strike 2 more times. Literally, it's just like, there's nothing significant that's quite happened, it's just, we see investigate, we see with one of the victims, with victim number 4, we see one of his last encounters with a friend of his, and how the friend later has regrets about how they parted because they had a fight. So the things you say, like, I guess it's a message saying you have to be careful of the things you say because it could be the last time you see this person. I don't know. But yeah, the murderer has killed a 4th time by strangulation, and a 5th time. The person I'm talking about is Derek's friend Freddie, who they were arguing about because on Saturdays there's a market and there'll be a lot of people, and it's like easy for them to slip wallets out, and Freddie, he messed up and it is pissed off Derek. But for some reason the murderer, he's changed suits, and so he's turned a new hand. And we also see our murderer kill a 5th time. This time is our friend magician, Henry. So the murderer killed his brother when he realizes his brother's gonna tell on him. He has to kill his brother to silence him. And his brother, he thought he was protecting his brother, by not saying, but he realized his brother's never gonna stop unless he is stopped, unless someone stops him, and he was just trying to do a good thing, but too late for that. And yeah, well, I'm liking the investigation and seeing like really the character of Ian, how much he really cares about the people in the city and whatnot. Because he is kind to the, there's a woman in here who I'm assuming is dealing with schizophrenia or something like that. Because she is claiming she's hearing voices, and she has good days, bad days, and it seems like because of the voices, she was kicked out, her parents kicked her out, and she's been on her own since, and he's still showing kindness to her, even though she appears to be this, mad woman. Or he's kind to the street urchins. He's just kind to people who are people who are considered low in society, because he knows what it's like to be alone. And now seeing him stand up to these people who are they consider themselves higher in society than than Derek, and like it's almost like Ian is almost like becoming a parental figure to Derek, which I do like seeing. So yeah, I am enjoying it. And I have one last quote if this is not posted. This author, whenever we get a murderer's like perspective, the line, "Oh, there was so much evil in a man," it's always used, and it just feels a bit overdone, and at times it just feels like that's inserted for no purpose. So yeah, I don't know, I'm just having fun with this novel, and I think that's all my thoughts for now. So yeah, I'll see you when I see you. So it's the next day, and I've just done some cleaning and whatnot. And today is like quite a contrast to yesterday, where it was quite rainy, quite snowy, like, and today is like 60 degrees. Like I had to go out to throw away some trash, and my word, it did not feel like it was the middle of December. And I live in an RV, so this is quite unusual. Like usually it's like 40 degrees cooler. Like today's like almost 16. Usually it's like 30, 20 degrees. And yeah, quite the contrast compared to yesterday, but still very beautiful food. It didn't melt off the snow, which is a pity. And yeah, and I did finish Edinburgh Twilight, and I liked it. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I think this is the beginning of a detective series, so if I find the rest of the books at like a library book sale or some used bookstore, I'll pick them up. Like I don't really think I'm gonna go out of my way to collect the series, but I enjoyed it. I had fun. But yeah, and from what I read, we do learn that the murderer, he for some reason disguised his brother's death as a suicide. Like he didn't leave a playing card on a body at all for some reason. And in the end, he finds evidence that it wasn't suicide because the victim wouldn't have been tall enough to reach the beam which he apparently hung himself on, even if he did stand on a chair. And as well, a fiber of rope was found under the bed when the victim apparently used the bone. I don't know, if that in some crimes it's like some other crimes it just feels a bit random, because I think he's so determined to find the murderer that he's trying to connect every crime to Edinburgh to him. Like I don't know, at times like this doesn't make sense, like why he thinks of something happened the way he did. Like, what's the connection? Why is he so adamant? Besides the fact like that this death happened at the hotel where he got the specific letter, but still, I don't know. It was too much of a coincidence for those two. I mean, it could also be the person who's stationary enough, but to idea, but. And the police do receive a telegram from that detective inspector from France who came over to consult them on that case, and who was later killed by our murderer. And he was able to learn who the murderer is and where he purchased his card, so they do know his identity. And the person who promised to come in to like sketch our murderer, he did come in, and he has a very strong resemblance to our suicide victim. I mean, just confirms like it could be a brother. And speaking of brotherly relationships, that was a bad segue. But Donald does return to the flat completely drunk, and he tells Ian that things were not as Ian thought they were. That their father, who thought Ian was perfect, who favored Ian, his father brother was a disappointment. Like the father was quite abusive towards Donald, and I think Donald even shows him a scar of a cigarette burn, and it's like he has many scars like that. And apparently their parents work together to hide this from Ian. Yeah, during an argument, the argument, Ian housed Donald. He wishes Donald was the strangler so he could solve the crime and get his brother out of his hair, which is just so fucked up. Like, this is the second time Ian says something in the heat of the moment that's just so messed up. It's like, yep, I think Donald finally realizes his brother has given up on him and leaves. And I kind of wish the other can went with this because we later see Donald at a bar, like someone knocks into him, spills his drink, and then offers to buy him a new one, which he does. And we see like they want to play card trick on him, and we see that it is our friend the murderer. Like, what I wish happened and stuff was Donald recognized the deck of cards and left to get the police, and by the time he returned, the murderer was like that. Like, it would have been, I don't know, more like gut wrenching, I feel like, for Ian to learn, like, his brother was killed, and with what he said to him would be the last thing he said to him. Like, I don't know, that would have really torn him, like, I've torn him up. Like, I am someone who's, I guess, most of my life ever wanting to see that, or was expecting that, like kind of like destroy him and make him more determined, because what really sets him off is who the murderer actually kills. Like, before Donald has this encounter with a murderer, he was being tailed by Sergeant Dickerson and George, and they were caught by footballers, and they were only later to escape. Like, the sergeant and George went their separate ways, and we later learned that George was the victim. Like, and that does affect Ian, but because he just didn't really seem to care for the librarian at times, like finding the eccentric man like on his nerves at times and interfering with the investigation. Like, I just didn't feel like it just bought anything. Like, there were no higher stakes. Like, he wasn't close to the librarian, but he did feel sad for the fact he was killed. And yeah, but that does set up a new plan that Ian has, which is to have the newspapers announce that they have a suspect in custody for these deaths. Like, I guess to have the true murderer like let down his guard and whatnot, which does work. And we see how during a market in in a park, he uses his skills to perform as a magician, which kind of in a way threw me off guard myself, just because this is someone who likes to blend in. Like, he's able to blend in with the city crowd into the darkness. Like, I don't know, there's something like him being open about his ability, like out and about, like center stage. Like, in a way, it felt out of character in a way. And yeah, but the police do notice the cards he's using, and there's a chase. Ian follows him into the cellar where the two end up in a fight, and Ian, he cannot resist in asking the murderer like why he did it. Like, he wants all of the answers. He wants the full picture, the full story. And we later learn that he wasn't able to get that as our murderer did die. And I guess to kind of trick Ian, he sets the fire to that cellar, and it's either he escapes or leaves in, or the fire happens. But yeah, I don't know. Ian is able to get out of the fire, but he closes the door behind the murderer, and something in him kind of resists the fact the murderer screams for someone to help him, to let him out. Like, he brings him back to the fire that killed his parents, and hearing his parents screaming for help. Like, I did like that aspect of fire does affect him, because we do see throughout this entire novel how he's affected by fire, and how he's scared that the fire will start in his apartment, and how how he tries to be careful not to start it. And yeah, and we see like him. This case is closed, and the murderer is dead. I do have to say there's a line on the last page of my work which I did like. It's when he was looking, February had slipped quietly away, giving way to the promise of spring and rebirth. Like, I think indicating that all of this death and decay is in the past and that a new life will come forward. And this is the end of a chapter, beginning of a new one, end of a story, and beginning of a story. Like, I don't know, I just like that sentence. And yeah, overall, I did enjoy this novel, though I did have some things, and I don't know, the story with Ian and his family felt like the story with Ian and his family and the story from Trying to Capture the Murderer just felt like two separate stories. Like, they just didn't, there was no connection between the two besides like telling the reader Ian's background and if things were really how they were. Like, kind of probably just to set up for more books in the series, but yeah. That's all of my opinions for now. And I will be telling you what book I will be reading tomorrow when I start it, because it's still on my shelf. I'm not feeling very well. So, yeah, I'll see you when I see you. So, it's the next day, and I did go out today. I did have to take my mom to, like, there's a seaside town for part of her work. Sorry for not filming anything there, but I forgot my phone at home, so yeah, guess who's a grandma? I think that's the second time that's ever happened to me. I don't know how that happened. I don't know. But we went into this antique store, which I think I've taken you to before, and we did go to this used bookstore, and I did get one book. I got The Once in the Future, which is by Alexei Harwell, which just takes place in 1893, and where people don't really believe in witches anymore. And there used to be in dark days before the burnings began, but now witching is nothing but a tidy charm and nursery rhymes. If the modern woman in a measure of power wants in a measure of power, she must find it at the buyout box. But when these sisters joined the suffrages of New Salem, they began to pursue the forgotten words in ways that might turn the women's movement into the witches' movement. Stalked by shadow sickness, hunted by forces who will not suffer which too bold and perhaps not even to live, the sisters will need to dive into the oldest magics, draw new alliances, and heal the bonds between them if they want to survive. So yeah, very much intrigued about it. I did read The 10,000 Doors of January by her a few years ago, and I did really enjoy it. But yeah, the book, I was reading with my mom, and I did do some reading. I started The Hazel by Melissa Albert, and I'm on page 62. Let me tell you what this is about, and the information on my phone, because the desk check is on the other side of the room. But we follow the 17-year-old named Alice and her mother, who for most of Alice's life have been on the road, and they've always been a step ahead of bad luck that's been biting on their heels. And when Alice's grandmother, who is an reclusive author of a cult classic, a book of pitch dark fairy tales, dies alone on her estate, the Hazelwood Alice learns how bad her luck can really get. Her mother is stolen away by a figure who claims to come from the hinterland, the cool supernatural world where her grandmother's stories are set. Alice's only lead is the message her mother left behind: stay away from the Hazelwood. Alice has long steered clear of her grandmother's cultish friends, but now she has no choice but to ally with classmate Ellery French, a hinterland superfan who may have his own reasons for wanting to help her to retrieve her mother. Alice must venture first to the Hazelwood, then into the world where her grandmother's tale began, and where she might find out how her own story went so wrong. So, yeah, that's what the novel is. And so far, since we're on page 62, we do only get the beginning. We do really see how Alice and her mother, they move around a lot. They stay in one of them apartments, either because they're able to find rent super cheaply or because Alice's mother is able to talk her into being like a live-in nanny or something like. And once it sounds like this bad luck, like it's like a feeling they have, a sense they leave before anything bad can truly happen. It seems like, and Ella, it seems like at one point is determined to get rid of this bad luck she has and take her and Alice to New York. And that's what happens. Alice is able to find a job at a like cafe, and Alan marries this guy who has like a lot of money, it seems, but his daughter's like, man, this marriage isn't gonna last long. Like, he apparently follows this pattern where he marries for a few months, puts up a act like, oh, he's gonna try and fix their marriage after a few months, and then a divorce happens. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like Alice won't be torn up if they do divorce, because it doesn't seem like she gets along with her stepfather. She feels more like a visitor to in his fancy New York City apartment than someone who lives there, like a guest, instead of like a occupant. So they kind of like clash in a sense. Like, he's neat, he's tidy, he likes things to be certain way, he likes cleanliness, and she'll like leave. She purposely will leave her books open on the bed or her clothes out, and clean up her bedroom and put milk back in the fridge while she's still using it, and like, and other things. So, and we do learn that Alice had an encounter with a super fan of her grandmother in the past. Someone claiming to know the grandmother, and abducted her, and like 14 hours passed and he was arrested. And this is brought up in present day when Alice thinks she sees this guy in a cafe she's working at, and he leaves her like some tokens, including a feather, a skull, a bone, and something else I'm blanking out. And we do see like how Ellery, like, he tries to befriend Alice initially because it seems like he's a big fan of her grandmother's work. He wants to get close to her, even though she has said that she doesn't know anything about her grandmother, that she probably knows the same amount of information about her than he does. Like, it seems like Ella, when she left home, that she cut off contact with the grandmother entirely, and it's not until that she gets the letter saying that the grandmother is dead. That it seems like she had any contact with her mom at all. So, and the story, I think, truly starts when Alice, she usually gets picked up from school, and for some reason her stepsister wasn't in her last class. Like, the stepsister never skips class, or something's off. And her mom isn't answering her phone, like things are off, like she goes to the department and no one is there, and it's like a phone call, because it's like, that's weird. And so where I'm at is like, she went to Ellery's house to borrow his copy of the book because her mother would not allow her to read that book at all. Yeah, that's where I'm at, and I would say I'm just intrigued about like what happened with Ella, where was Ella, who was this guy that like is, I guess, following Alice. I don't think that's the case, but the person from Alice's past who's now resurfacing. I don't know. It's interesting. Otherwise, today was a nice day, quite warm, like in the 40s, and I truly regret I left my phone. But not because of the B-roll, but because if something happened, I would need my phone. I don't know how that happened. It is. So yeah, I'll see you when I see you. Bye. So it's the next day, and I've just done some cleaning and tidying up and whatnot. And I have done some reading of the Hazelwood, and I'm on page 182. So far, I would say I'm intrigued. I don't feel like I'm in the story. Like, I feel like I just am a viewer. Like, I just don't feel connected. So That's unfortunate. I do have to say I do like the reasoning, I guess, behind like why Ellery, like why he's so obsessed with these stories and why he's obsessed with like fairy tales, because fairy tales and especially the stories in Alice's grandmother's book, they tend to be quite formulaic. Like you know what's gonna happen, and it's like you don't expect anything different or anything like not unusual but unexpected. Like it's just the same really. Like you know what you are getting when you enter a fairy tale. Like this is the story and this is what happened. And with Valerie, like his life has been turned upside down, and he has had a lot of things going on in his life with his family, and he finds comfort in fairy tales, and I do like that aspect of the novel. And there was a discussion like on page like 178 to be precise, where Alice is driving and she is going to the town where he's always supposed to be. And there's apparently been an accident on the road, and the cop is trying to tell her she has to turn around, and she won't listen. Like she's giving him attitude, and Ellery's upset with this because I think he's a person of color. I'm not entirely sure if I've forgotten completely all details or what, but if someone who looked like him did that, they would be pulled out of the car. I mean, the cop could have still pulled him out of the car because of Alice's attitude. And Alice is, because she knows Ellery, the kind of person he is, the background he comes from, like she would be surprised that the cop would do that. But it's like cops don't care; they have their own prejudices and their own opinions on certain kind of people. It seems like, which I do find interesting, that the fact like even if Alice doesn't have the privilege of being a rich person in New York, of coming from a place of money and stability, it seems like she does have the privilege, and it seems like she is right. So yeah, I do find that the discussion very interesting. And plot wise, Alice, she did go to Ellery's apartment to borrow his copy of her grandmother's book, and while he did have it in his possession at one point, it was apparently stolen. It seems like someone like went out of their way to take it from him. He was with his friend at the friend's like bookstore. The friend wanted to examine it because this book is so weird. It's like so difficult to find copies. No one's printed it. No one's like photocopied it. So none of the pages are online, and most blogs discussing it are like difficult to find. Like, there's no evidence that this book exists, only for those who actually have copies. And his friend's examining it when this young boy, he runs in, grabs the book off the countertop and runs out into a taxi. So yeah, it seems like someone did go out of their way to take it. And really, I'm going in order of events like that I found just to be noteworthy, and I find it interesting. Like Alice, she remembers times when she was intrigued about a book on her own. Really, like her mom did not want her to go digging into anything about the grandmother because Alice's mother did not care for them, and there's no point in digging up these ghosts, it seems like. And Alice, behind her mother's back, would go blog to blog, just trying to find something about it. And then there was this one night when someone like hacked into her computer, turned on her camera, I guess, to see her, and they closed the browser she was looking at and deleted her history. Like it seems like there's someone who is going out of their way to try and hide evidence that this book exists. Like, I found that really weird and interesting. But yeah, and what else is weird is that when Alice returns to her apartment, she finds her stepfather and her stepsister, and Harold, her stepfather, he pulls a gun on her, and like something happened, and he's like out of it really, and it's like theory, and apparently Audrey, the stepsister, and Alice, they were all kidnapped. Audrey and Harold were released, but Alice was taken by these kidnappers, and apparently it's the Hinterland that took Ella, which is like the book. Characters from the story seem to be coming to the real world. Like, there's a girl who named twice killed Catherine, who's appearing like Frenchie's and is like startled by this. Alice sees other characters from other fairy tale stories, or like people just being unusual. It seems like I don't really know. And yeah, so I do find that aspect interesting, seeing people that aren't really there. They do find a copy of the book, but more strange things happen, because when they try and buy this book from the guy, like it's a book dealer who apparently got a book like an hour before they called. He's about to sell it to them when he opens the book, and a Polaroid of them sleeping and falls out, and he that way refuses to sell them the book because of that. It's just strange, like if it's a scam or scheme or something. Seems like someone tried to get to Alice through this. I no idea, but that was just really interesting. And yeah, Alice, she doesn't remember like the places she's lived. Like she does remember bits and pieces, but it's like she doesn't remember like events that would lead her to have these life lessons we all get. Like she got her life lessons from the books she was reading while she was living there, and that seems like what she really remembers. It seems like her memory is like reset when they leave the place, when they're running from this bad luck. And yeah, Ben, she okay. Alice, she's able to get in touch with Audrey, who tells her that Ella was quite calm when she was taken. It seems like Ella might have been expecting this. And Alice, like, tell Alice to stay the hell away from the Hazelwood. And Alice is like, we have to go to the Hazelwood. I'm like, your mom should knows what's safe and what's good for you. Like, are you insane? Like, I was just typical. Like, I was just so but yeah, like from that morning when I tried, they do find like this graduate student who was able to track down Hazelwood to this small town a few hours away from New York. And when Alice goes to try and talk to her, it seems like she was able to get the graduate student. She was able to get into the Hazelwood because the Hazelwood allowed her, and she was with her friend, a fellow graduate student, and he was killed, she was let go. And even though no time had passed in our world when she was in a Hazelwood, she did age like 7 years, and she did also age in a sense like she no longer feels like herself. Like she feels like this changeling wearing someone else's skin. Like she can't remember what she liked, what she wanted in life, why she left her apartment. Like it just seems like she's just existing in this world. Like no dreams, no desires, no wants, nothing. Like she was clearly infected, but yeah. And despite everything, Alice is desperate to find her mother. Like she wants to know like what happened to Ella. Like it's always just been the two of them. So she and Ella, they do take this trip up to a small town in New York, and yeah, I just got to the point where after their argument about how Alice reacted to that police officer who told her to turn around and that whole argument. Yeah. And I do like some ideas in this novel. Like I do find it interesting, like what I said about Ellery and like why he likes fairy tales, about the fact that like these fairy tale characters are coming into our real world, and there seems to be someone after Alice, and also trying to destroy all evidence of the tales of the Hinterland, which is from the Hinterland, which is the book that her grandmother wrote, like trying to destroy all evidence that it existed. So yeah, but other than that, I don't know, I don't feel very connected to the story. Like it's fine so far, but yeah. But yeah, that's all for now. So I'll So it's the next day, and as you saw, it did snow before this. Again have to clarify this in case you can see my previous videos. But I wasn't driving when I filmed those videos of me trying to capture the snow. I don't film myself when I'm driving because it's not safe. But yeah, the snow has stuck, and I think we're supposed to get more snow, so that would be lovely. Like I don't know, it smells just beautiful. So. Yeah, but the fun thing is I had to run some errands in it and yeah, burr, so I have to say. Like, it's not freezing, but it's like. I would say unpleasant when something's hitting you. Like, it was kind of like rain, honestly. But I had to get my errands done and I was anticipating the snow starting later than it did. I think I went out probably around morning time, noon time, and the snow is supposed to start around 3, 4 o'clock. So it is what it is. But yeah, I went my errands, did my grocery shopping, so that's good for me. And yeah, I've also done quite a bit of reading of the Hazelwood, and I'm on page 286. So it looks like I might be able to finish it tomorrow, which is good because honestly, I don't care. Like, there's aspects of it that are intriguing to me, but other than that, I don't feel connected to this story at all. Like, yeah, I generally don't know if it's because I'm going out of way. Like, that's why I read was Where the Dark Stands Still, and that was also fun, but I do like the Diviner series by the Barbarian, and that's why, so. Yeah, but I think I'm done picking up YA books and library books as well. I might pick up Divine Rivals, which I believe is supposed to be a YA. I don't know, but yeah, but what we do see when Ellery and Alice leave the hotel, like they're staying at Ellery, he starts acting off and weird. Like before, he was okay with following Alice to the woods. Now it seems like he's trying to convince her to go back to New York, and it seems like really like him realizing like he thought what's happening is like in a movie, like, and he realized this isn't a movie. Like it's like he's seeing the events that's playing out in his mind through like the lens of him watching a movie. Like it's like he's this. Oh God, what's the word? Not dislocate. He's disassociated. No, that's wrong. But he doesn't feel like he's someone who these events are happening to, and it seems like he has realized when Alice Woman drives the car into a tree. And it seems like he's realizing, like, oh, this is real. And we also, and it seems like that's really not an option for them to go back at the moment, because when they leave the motel, they see that their car is flooded, and it's like not like, oh, like they left the windows open and rained the night before, everything's a bit orange. No, it's like someone filled their car with water, like, and it's not like normal water where it's like seawater. Apparently, it's like fish apparently plopped up, which yeah, forcing them to try and find another place to rent a car, which isn't the easiest thing because they have to take a bus that only runs once a day to this place where they will be able to rent it. And we do learn that Ellery, he apparently is like was working with two characters from the Hazelwood. He started to try and kind of get them to Alice, and apparently it started after she had passed out in front of the bookstore, like when they were trying to buy a copy, and these two characters do catch up to them, and one of them kills Ellery to try and force Alice to try and kill herself, because it will force a door to open, really. And she refuses, and they place her in this like woods, and it's not a hazelwood, it's like a halfway woods, where it's like it's close to the hazelwood, and yeah, I don't know, she ends up in the hazelwood in a way. And she goes into a building that looks like her grandmother's estate, from what she's seen. And Alice learns that the stories that her grandmother took from the hazelwood, from the hinterland, and brought into our world by kind of allowing the people of our world to know these stories and hear them. It built a bridge between the two worlds, which allows the characters from the hazelwood to come into our world, and people from our world to go into the hazelwood. And oh my word, there's Althea, which is the grandmother's name. Grandmother, she didn't realize what she was doing until it was too late. Like, she was a young, arrogant woman in her mid-20s in a time period when she wasn't able to write what she wanted to write. She, like, instead of reporting on the war, she had to write like, oh, this is how you iron your husband's shirt, sort of thing. And she wanted stories that mattered, and yeah, and by building this bridge, it just continued. And Alice, she finds her grandmother like kind of in a sick bed, and she learns other such as she learns that she herself was a character in the stories that her grandmother told, and that she was Ella's, Althea's daughter's favorite story, and Ella found Alice in the hazelwood and took her out of the story, and it seems like Alice herself is a connection between the two worlds, as she doesn't belong in our world, she belongs in Hazelwood, and by remaining in our world, she continues to be this bridge. And so I got distracted. So there's that, and yeah, you learn that there's been other attempts to close this bridge altogether, and that's why this book has been like become so rare, and why people are deleting blogs or trying to get rid of copies of the book, because by people remembering these stories and reading them continuously, it allows the bridge to stay. And by destroying the books and destroying like any evidence that the stories exist, and trying to make people forget the stories, it will make this bridge disappear and close off the two worlds from one another. So that's what's happening there. Yeah, I think I'm intrigued to see like how Alice will play a part in this, is what I have to say, like how she'll be able to close the portion of herself that is like the bridge. Yeah, I don't know, like what will happen to her, and if she'll, I guess, reintegrate it back into her story. And yeah, I think really that's all my thoughts. Like, other than that, like, I'm trying to think of things that I do like, and I do like the idea that by telling stories and people remembering stories, that it builds a bridge between our world and like the world of these stories. Like, I do like that aspect and that idea, and that by taking characters from those stories, it just causes problems. But other than that, like, I don't know, I don't feel connected to this novel in any way. Like, it's fine, but yeah, like, I'm intrigued to see how it ends. So yeah, I think that's all for now. So I'll see you when I see. So it's the next day, and I've just done some cleaning and whatnot. It did snow a bit more last night, so we did get like a coating of snow on our driveway. I did have to clear it up, as it's supposed to be quite cold the next few days. Like, that high. Like tomorrow is supposed to be 20, so cold nights, and yeah, it's gonna freeze, and yeah, that's gonna be a slippery slope. But I have done quite a bit of reading today. I finished one book, started another, and yeah. Now the book I did finish was The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, and overall this was fine. I didn't connect to the story in any way. Like if it says 3-star reader, like it's fine. Me, unfortunately. Oh well. But with what I read, Alice is told she needs to find a figure named the Story Spinner to like find her way out of this world. And the Story Spinner, it's not like a figure like go down this path, go down that path, turn right here, turn left there. It's not that sort of thing. It's more like trust your instincts and you will find them eventually. And she's expecting the worst, like some sort of weird creature, and really what she finds is this woman. And the spinner, she tells her that her story will never end. Like when it reaches its ending, it starts again. It's like an endless loop of stories. We don't feel this world that they're in. Like, it allows the stars to remain in the sky, to allow the grass to grow. Like, I don't know. I like that idea. I think that was interesting. And the spinner, she tricks Alice to go back into her story. And when she takes her to the castle where the story is set, she sees like the characters are stuck in this like they've been stuck in this limbo since Alice was plucked from her story, and the spinner puts Alice back in her story, and we see that story unfold from Alice's perspective, and Alice continues to go through her story that was told. Until she remembers aspects of her life in our world that something in her change, and she's eventually rescued by the person who people sent her to, like for refugees of this world, and Finch, who didn't die when he was also thrown into that forest with Alice, and like in myself to die, but he was treated and healed by the people. And after they rescue her from the story and change the ending, it does break that loop, and she's free. She's now an ex character. Her story's over. She's just free to go wherever she wants. She decides to go back to our world, and Finch, he decides to stay in that world. And when something happens to that world, he just continues to explore other worlds. Like that world, another fairy tale land-esque worlds. That's all he's ever desired. So yeah, then we see how Alice, she reunites with Ella and kind of like restarts her life. We do learn that 2 years have passed in our world, so things have changed. And yeah, we really just see how she ends up in this like support group of other ex-characters who are also trying to navigate this new world and this new life. So yeah, I don't know, it just wasn't really my cup of tea, but it is what it is. And now, the second book I started, which I think will be probably the last book I finish in 2024, is Jade War by Fonda Lee, and this is the sequel to Jade City. I'm not in the mood to like look up the synopsis to Jade City just because I don't know, I just started feeling really tired otherwise. But this, from what I understand, takes place about a year after the events of Jade City. We start the novel with these two boys, these two street urchins, trying to dig up a grave of the pillar or the leader of one of the clans in this universe, a man who was killed by one of the boys, and they want to stay with Jade. Jade in this world, like if you wear it not on you like a bracelet, I mean you can do that, but like on you, like in your skin, like on, like some people do have it embedded in their collarbones or not, and it can allow you to have power, and it can also be used like to sell to, you know, it's used to give someone power, and this and it seems like powerful figures, they are buried with their jade to try and prevent people from stealing it, because grave robbery is this worse than thievery. It's a death sentence if you are caught. If these two boys, because they're street urchins and because they're not aligned with any of the clans, they are really able to have access to the jade, because the clans, they kind of hoard all of the jade for themselves and to make deals with uh, ally countries and so maybe their only option is either to buy this jade on a black market, which I don't think they are able to, or you just steal it, and yeah, they decide to steal. And we see how they are successful in stealing some of the jade. They're not able to steal all of the jade because the guards in the cemetery are coming. Yeah, and yeah, we jump to the funeral of the torture, where from what I gathered, the founder of one of the clans, he died from dementia or old age, but we see how his grandson, who is the current pillar or leader, has to deal with like the politics of running a clan on the day of his funeral, during the reception, like how one woman who has like loose ties to the clan is asking him to help her get back her son from a man who is like someone who has a lot of control on the black market, how someone who is a former clan member who isn't really able to really properly serve his clan because his arms were cut off or help. And we also see how he confronts his cousin, or has a conversation, a very tense conversation with his cousin, who left the clan after graduating from the school where they teach you how to control the powers before he receives his jade. And the cousin left because jade, even if it does give one powers, it does have consequences to using it. Like this boy Aiden, he saw his mother lose her mind due to the jade, and he also saw that his cousin, who was the former leader, the one who was killed, how he was growing weaker due to the amount of jade he was wearing it, and he didn't want to experience that. He wanted a life free from the clans, a life free from jade. And because of actions, in the previous book, he's not entirely able to do that. Like, he has the sense like he does have it, but he doesn't truly have it. But his cousin, he sends him to this island really to protect him from the other clan's revenge, and that just pisses him off. And I do enjoy seeing the politics of it, and people who weren't meant to have the positions they do, like, kind of navigate it. Because we see how his sister, who is the pillar sister, who is the other man, who is the person who manages the finances and the contracts in the clan, she doesn't really, she's kind of like naive, I guess. She doesn't really understand the politics and the strategy that is required in running a clan. Like, she is good with the finances, but she's struggling with that aspect. So I do like that, and I also like seeing how people who are ignorant about the true effects of wearing jade, like how they love it, they love wearing jade, because the boy who stole the jade in the beginning, he's wearing some of it, and with a certain drug that allows him to control jade, he feels invincible. He feels like his life before this, it was like this dull, colorless, like half-conscious dream. And he also is finding ways to cheat the system with this drug, because usually people develop this control over years, and he thinks the way the clan is doing it is so outdated. Like, it's so much easier, so much more modern to take this drug and have control. And I mean, the former pillar, he was taking this drug, and it was also affecting him. So yeah, seeing that is interesting thing. Really, this boy, this young boy who I'm assuming is like in his late teens, early 20s, he gives off an air of arrogance and an air of like he's so power hungry. Like he's someone who's never had power before, who's had to fight his way to survive. Like he has this kind of a sense of power, and he wants it. He wants it all for himself. And I don't know. There's like in him as an antagonist. So yeah, that's all my thoughts for now, and that's also the end of this vlog. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you've been up to before, what you've been up to recently. Mine one is that I don't know. I think my mind was somewhere else. Merry Christmas, by the way, because this is going up after Christmas. This is chaotic. Anyway, if you want to, please subscribe to this channel. If you want to follow me on any social media, then all those things are in the down bar below. I will see you guys next time I post.